We have this event coming up with Chef Scott where they're using the upcycled grains from our spent grains to create a menu around, and then we're pairing that with some of our beers.
You hear of upcycling clothes, shopping vintage, secondhand, but we thought, let's do that with beer and food. So we have partnered with Chef Scott and NETZRO to bring something that is not really known in the Twin Cities yet. It's upcycling food.
So what we tried to do tonight is really go full circle with spent grain. And obviously right now it's end of August and everything in Minnesota is local. So we really just hit this with Minneapolis Farmers Market, dual citizen spent grain, local everything.
We have a few entrees on the menu and even the dessert that has been made with the spent grain from the very beer that they will actually be drinking that's paired with it.
When we moved to this location, we really wanted to make a splash here locally, and so we called upon Chef Scott. He was enthusiastic about doing something with dual citizen here. So what we did is we had several of the beers and the spent grain, and then we processed them, upcycled them, gave them to Chef Scott, and then he's been innovating for about 2 or 3 weeks for this event to put on a 5-course meal with all these different grains and incorporate them into the menu.
I've been developing a spent grain pretzel. So I've been calling it a beer grain pretzel. I've been putting pure maple syrup, butter, and then it's spent grain, flour, and basically yeast and salt.
Once we are done brewing the beer, NETZRO actually comes and picks up our spent grain and do what they do best.
I have been a huge fan of Sue since she started this, and I thought this is a really wonderful concept. I think anything that we can do to reduce waste and then also expand the food cycle without having to grow more food is just better for our environment.
A lot of these brews have different ingredients going into them. So they take toasted coconut and they put that into the brewing process. And then it's so crazy how when you take that toasted coconut and you sear that with the crab cake crusted on it, it just comes through. It's basically crusted in toasted coconut. So there's just a lot of opportunities where you can kind of just take it, juggle it around, play with it, and drop it on a plate, and it's just delicious.
So most of the pairings tonight, the beer that we processed the spent grain was matched with that course. So Chef Scott would do a spread around the cheese.
To wrap it all up, we had the dessert, and the dessert was a spent grain devil's chocolate cake.
The cake at the end with the chocolate had the Caress Me Brown, which is a nice, soft, darker beer, but not too dark, but it went really good with the chocolate.
Usually I'll do a wine and food pairing, so to actually have a beer and food pairing was really refreshing, and I thought it all worked really well.
He was able to take a look at what beer would be best and what spent grain he was using to make that pairing perfect.
It's just too good to waste.
Too good to waste.
Too good to waste.